Hello, it's your host John Thornhill and you're listening to the Sifted Podcast. Joining me today in London is Liz Kendall, Member of Parliament for Leicester West, and since 2025, Secretary of State for the UK's Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. Established in 2023, DSIT's mission is to make the UK a global tech and science superpower, focusing on frontier tech like AI, quantum and semiconductors. Under Liz, the department has launched the Sovereign AI Unit, a £500 million fund which has already backed the likes of David Silver's Ineffable Intelligence and drug discovery scale-up Isomorphic Labs. Last month, it also unveiled its £1.1 billion AI hardware plan aimed at supporting UK chip companies. Despite this progress, it's an open question whether Liz will be part of the presumptive new Prime Minister Andy Burnham's team and whether she will be in the same post by September. Liz, it's great to have you on the podcast.
It's lovely to be here.
What's the latest news on that front?
Well, I don't know. I absolutely love doing this job, especially in this country at this time. I think it was my first week in the post, I met Fei Li, who, she doesn't like being called the godmother of AI, but that's what she's seen as. She said, to be in this job, in this country, at this time, is incredible. Do not squander the opportunity. And those words have been ringing in my ear ever since.
And what's the opportunity that you see?
I believe we are genuinely third in the world, outside of America and China, on the most powerful technology of our lifetimes. A technology that I think is now the engine, not just of economic power, but of hard power. And my job, the government's job, whoever is the Prime Minister and whoever is the Secretary of State, is to seize the opportunities of AI, to make it work for the British people, and to deal with its inevitable challenges and risks. And I think we are probably better placed than almost any other country to do this because of our incredible talent in this country.
Do you think Andy Burnham and his team realise that?
I believe they do. I believe they will. I know he has a big vision for reindustrialising the country, for growth in every corner of the country. And I don't believe that you can do that without AI at its heart. This isn't some sort of strange model in a different country or in a different place. I see every day how it is already being used in businesses, in public services. It is developing at this incredible rate. And I want to do more to back our brilliant British founders to get those jobs, get that growth, get that transformation in our economy and public services, and to win for Britain.
Have you spoken to Andy Burnham directly about this? Do you expect to stay in your job?
I would love to stay in my job, but that's for the new Prime Minister to decide. I'm certainly speaking to his team about all of these issues. There's a very tight transition period between now and a new Prime Minister coming in, and we need to ramp up our efforts. I think that it's a crucial moment for Britain. I think the next 24 months are mission critical for us. This is, as you know, and as all your listeners will know, this technology is developing at an exponential rate, and we have got to put our foot even further down on the pedal. We can't go into cruise control here. So I'm very seized of the importance and the urgency, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that we do make the most of this.
One of the things that Andy Burnham has talked about is the importance of having growth in every postcode. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And one of the criticisms of the AI industry, I guess, is that it's very much focused on the kind of golden triangle of Oxford, London and Cambridge. How are you able to convince your colleagues in government that AI benefits everyone in the country?
I've seen directly for myself how brilliant founders and startups are using this technology in all parts of the country. So I recently went to Liverpool to see their materials chemistry, very, very strong cluster there, where AI is being used to transform products, doing tests in weeks that would have previously taken months, products in every household in the country, or Cardiff with its semiconductor industry, or Sage in Newcastle. Sage, one of the biggest tech companies here, brilliant products for SMEs in particular to use to transform their businesses. I can really see on the ground how it is being used, and our AI growth zones, not just the data centers, but the sort of clusters of support around that, skills training, universities involved to get those spin outs to scale up. They are literally being built on former industrial sites in Lanarkshire, in North Wales, in South Wales, and in the North East. So if we are going to get growth in every part of the country, there's no route to stronger growth and no answer to how we compete and pay our way in the world unless AI, science and tech are really embedded in this sort of modern reindustrialisation.
Mm-hmm. In April, you delivered quite a punchy speech at the Royal United Services Institute where you said that a failure to invest in the AI would be a betrayal of British talent and British interests. Those are very strong words. Do you think there is a danger of betrayal?
I think lots of people are worried about this technology. They think it's going to take their job. They're worried about existential risks. They don't like to see just a very, very few extraordinarily wealthy people benefiting. But the choice isn't between having this technology or not to somehow sort of stop AI. The choice is between seizing it and shaping it to work for us or being left at its mercy or whim. And if you, as I believe we are, the best country outside, Western country outside America for this powerful technology, why wouldn't we seize this and actually have confidence? We're not powerless in this. We can choose to seize the opportunities for Britain, to back more British AI companies, which is what my RUSI speech was all about, how we actually gain greater leverage and sovereign control over this, and to help people through the inevitable jobs transition. Because there will be changes. Some jobs will be created, some will change, and some will be lost. But we have to help people through that.
It's not surprising in a way that people have this sense of AI dread, is it, when the leaders of the tech companies themselves are the ones who are talking about 50% of all entry-level white-collar jobs are going to get eliminated in 5 years, and they are the ones who have raised the spectre of existential risk and so on. So do you think they're irresponsible in raising all those concerns?
But we're also seeing AI create jobs. We're seeing not just in, the 15,000 jobs that will be created in our AI growth zones, but through new companies, brilliant companies that are taking on new staff through the boom that we're seeing, but not just in London and the Golden Triangle, as you said. But I studied history at university, not computer science or engineering. And I think what history has taught me from the Industrial Revolution onwards is that you aren't powerless. You can choose to come together and deal with the challenges new technologies bring. But there is no choice about whether we have it or not. I take this extremely seriously. And for me, AI must be a core strategic priority for the UK, for our economy, but also critically our national security too.
One of the things, though, about the Industrial Revolution was that the Luddites were perfectly rational economic actors, weren't they? They suffered in the short term, even if there was a massive upsurge in productivity in the long term. So
but then it was out of that we actually had the collective action through the trade union movement, through government policies, which actually dealt with some of the consequences that new technology brought. And my argument is, if you have the will, if you have a government who's determined to act, to seize the opportunities and deal with the risks, that is the best way forward for our country.
Do you think we need new institutions, new policies to do that? Do we have to change our tax system?
So we have had new institutions to begin to deal with this, one of which actually was put in place by the last government, the AI Security Institute, which I think is an incredible organisation which has, really helped us evaluate these new models and some of the risks. And it's really interesting how many other countries want to work with ACI. Even just last week met with the German tech minister, signed a memorandum of understanding on this because they want to share our knowledge, our evidence, our experience, the skills that we have there. So new institutions are required. And even at the Defence Investment Plan last week, there was an announcement that we'll have a new fund looking at AI security risks, biosecurity risks, agentic AI. So new things are always going to have to develop to deal with that.
You mentioned these very powerful new models that are being developed, like Anthropic's Mythos and Fable and so on. But it was fascinating how the American government exercised a kill switch on these. They were worried about the misuse. How vulnerable is Britain to the kill switch?
I do think that is a wake-up moment for the country. As you mentioned, back in April, I actually argued that precisely because I knew that this was something like this would be coming, that we have to gain greater sovereign control, that for this country, that is not about pulling up the drawbridge and attempting to go it alone. It is about trying to secure greater leverage, and becoming what I call the keystone in the global tech architecture. Britain as an indispensable partner here. You'll have written about this before, the huge value chain from the metals to the chips to the data centers to the models. No country can control that all on its own. For us, it's about where are Britain's key strengths? And we are investing in new foundational models. You mentioned David Silver's Ineffable, which SovAI is actually putting the money into, but we're, Cosine, we're putting compute into that, and UKRI is investing in new foundational research labs. We are the brilliant ideas that our founders, our startups are coming up with. We are investing in that, but crucially, we've taken two really, really big bets. One is on AI hardware. As Pat Gelsinger, who now runs Playground Global, has said many times before, the country that wins on compute wins on AI.
And this is a former head of Intel.
Exactly, the former head of Intel, because, if you want the best life sciences or the best financial services, you need the best chips. So we've got this £1.1 billion investment in AI hardware, but also these new foundational models that we're looking at. I've compared this a bit in the past to the Olympics. I don't know the average age of your listener, but for those of us who remember in 1992 how terrible we were in Atlanta at the Olympics, something like 36 in the gold medal table, okay? But we didn't give up, did we? What did we do? We backed our best sports, not the individuals, but the sports. Where were our strengths? And then we invested more into those, and they built better teams. So they did better. They attracted more people, and I see it like that for AI, investing in backing our key strengths. So on AI hardware, on the SovAI fund for our founders, but also the £2 billion bet we put on quantum, because I don't want to miss out on that incredible technology for the future.
So you think we can win gold medals when it comes to tech?
I absolutely believe. I don't know if it's because I am inherently competitive, but let me tell you this. Nobody runs their fastest race to come second or third, do they? You run your fastest race to win, and that's what I want to do.
Do you think, though, when it comes to sovereign AI, that Britain really can win when it comes to chips or cloud computing or foundation models? Colossal sums of money are being spent on all of these areas by the US tech companies. How can Britain possibly compete?
Or even, the announcement around South Korea just last week. Combined with private sector, $880 billion over the next 10 years. What that says is we have to go faster and we have to do more. I think SovAI is doing incredibly well. It isn't just the £500 million direct investment, it's unlocking that key to wider government support, seamlessly linking to the British Business Bank that's got £2 billion a year, but also the Holy Grail, which is government procurement, which is really where I think we need to go next to back our brilliant British AI and tech companies.
A lot of startups here say that they would love to have more growth capital. And Andy Haldane gave a very interesting speech at the British Chambers of Commerce the other week, where he was talking that UK pension funds should have a home bias in terms of investment, that they benefit greatly from kind of a tax relief. They should be investing more, a greater proportion of their assets in Britain. Do you support that?
Yeah, well, in fact, when I was in my last job as Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, I actually introduced the Pensions Act to try and get more institutional investment into British companies. I absolutely support that. I think that's a really big question for the country. We've taken measures to make sure that happens. I know the companies want that money to come on extremely quickly, but we need to act at all these different levels. And I do, when I look around the world and some of the measures countries are taking to try and win in this race, I mean, many not just for their economies, but for their national security, that just tells us that AI must remain a core strategic priority for the government.
But would you favour legislation or a kind of government mandate to have home bias for UK pension funds?
Well, we've already taken these steps in the Pensions Act that I've talked about. Let's see that working, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more and more about this in the coming weeks and months. But my responsibility at DSIT is to use every possible lever that I have to back more British AI companies, because we do need that greater sovereign control.
Last week, the FT reported that Burnham's AI strategy, and one person who had been involved in developing this thinking said that, they were quite critical of the government's courting of driverless car companies, in particular like Wave. Were you surprised by that?
I personally think Wave is an incredible company. This amazing idea that they had, which is self-driving car, but not with the sort of lasers on top and having to learn the road maps of every city, but actually learning to drive. A brilliant idea that they stuck with for 10 years. And I may say, training it on the terrible, bumpy, complex roads in London with all the weather
Hardest
and all
environment
that.
in the world.
Absolutely brilliant. And now look at them. 80% of Nissan's new cars, I think it is, are going to have their model in them. I think it is a brilliant British success story.
But are you not afraid that they will just go to the US if we suddenly introduce legislation that is going to stall the development of driverless cars?
Well, actually, we are removing the regulatory barriers so that they can actually, be rolled out quickly here in the UK. So there's two things here. We should be backing British companies in this technology, because if we don't, we'll end up reliant on US companies, which is precisely what some people are worried about. But at the same time, we do have to take seriously people's worries about their jobs, which is why, the two things that I have done on tech and AI is firstly is to back British companies, but secondly say explicitly, we won't leave you to cope on your own. We aren't like the Tories in the 80s and 90s who saw whole industries decimated and left people to cope on their own. We will help people through the jobs transition.
In this report, one of Burnham's team said, what's the point of driverless cars and who's it for? How would you answer those questions?
Well, I certainly know from my discussions with them and the people who've used those cars, it's everything from, if people are worried about maybe driving their kids around at the weekends, constantly taking them to different places, or women who want to feel safe, but also elderly parents as well. That may be something that can be done. I want that available for all. I think it's really important, the safety issues as well. They've got very good safety data, because it's that's really important for them. So I do think that there is a market there, and I want us to back a brilliant British company.
Okay. You told the UK tabloid The Mirror the other day that Burnham's team had spoken to you about the proposed social media ban for under 16s. How is that developing? Do you think Burnham will support what the government's current position is on that?
Yeah, because this is another part, I think, or a really important part of the strategy, which is if you're going to get people to use tech and AI, they've got to know it's going to help them with their job, not take it, and they've got to feel that their children are safe. And I think this is a really significant moment because it is a reset of social norms and expectations. I have absolutely no doubt that loads of kids will try and succeed in getting around the ban, kids who are currently on it. But for me, this is as much about future generations. And I think that there is broad support in the Labour Party because there is overwhelming support in the country for this. I've never seen such strong support amongst parents for something. 9 out of 10 people who responded to our consultation, the parents, said they supported it. It's a simple and clear message. It reshapes social norms. And I think it's about giving children their childhood back.
Kanishka Narayan, the AI and online safety minister, gets very positive reviews, I think, from the tech community. But some people question whether the brief is too broad, AI and online safety. Do you think that is right?
Well, there's huge amounts of issues to cover. But let me just say one thing about Kanishka, who is incredible. He is perfectly able to cope with both of those issues. And in fact, I think it's part of how you, as I said, how do we seize those opportunities? If people see problems for their children or problems with, AI deepfakes online, including of politicians or actors or musicians, you've got to be able to deal with those issues. Otherwise, people won't feel confident in using the technology.
One of the other things you've talked about is that tech is a very male-dominated world, and you're trying to do something to address that. How are you going about that?
Well, actually, I've literally hot-footed from the last meeting of the Women in Tech Task Force over at Tech UK's offices. Now, we've got 2 sets of reports that are coming out about women staying in tech and women leading in tech, because we know we are losing so many women in tech every single year. I think we lose about £4 billion from the economy. And that's a real concern because companies are losing out on their talent as well as women missing out. And there's quite a lot of issues there around culture in workplaces that we need to address. And on the women leading in tech, I've been really struck that only 2p in every pound of VC funding goes to women tech founders. Yet, on average, the research shows they're delivering a 35% higher return on investment. So we're looking more about that because I suppose it's not just that I believe all these opportunities in tech, women, we want our equal slice of the pie, but it's also because we need more tech that works for women. So if you look at recruitment tools, which have been shown, some AI recruitment tools 5 times more likely to pick a man's name than a woman's name, or even AI used in the NHS to look at, say, liver disease, twice as likely to miss it in women. So I think it is both about more women in tech and more tech that works for women. I think we'll only get the best possible tech if it draws on all the skills and experience and knowledge, and that includes half the population.
Tell us more about the Sovereign AI Unit. The venture team is led by Josephine Kant, an investor with experience at Google and YC. She told Sifted when she consulted people about taking the job that she would be absolutely crazy to take the position.
I love Josephine. I think she's a really interesting thinker, especially about Britain's role in the world.
Expand.
On this,
well,
she's very interesting on how the sense of a country and what they see as their historic strengths can shape their attitude to a new technology, which I've found fascinating. But Josephine, James Wise, and Suzanne are it's incredible what they've done. The reason I think this is so important, and I said when I was at their launch, I think it's going to be one of the most important things this government does in its whole time in office. Because if we believe this is the most powerful technology of our lives, which I do, if I believe it's critical to our economy and national security, which I do, and if I believe we've got to have more control over this, which I do, then Sov AI is absolutely critical. And it isn't just, lots of people have said, oh, it's only £500 million. Well, firstly, £500 million invested wisely is incredible. And I'm so proud that they are, invested in Ineffable and Isomorphic and Colosum and all these other brilliant companies, which I think could be, these new models of the future. But it's also unlocking wider government support. So it's like they say it's the speed of venture backed by the power of the nation. So whether that is your super priority visas, turning them around in one day, free R&D visas, unlocking the door to the British Business Bank to seamlessly take you to the next stage, or indeed critically wider government procurement, which is really the thing that we've got to crack. I think that they've achieved, James Wise said they've achieved more in their first few months than many funds could hope to do in a year. And the government doesn't do things like this.
Do you think you'll get more money for it? Will it scale up?
Oh, I am always after more money for the things that I think are important. I can't bind future prime ministers or chancellors. But I would always want to do more, always.
There's been a lot of debate about whether Britain ought to join the EU Scale-Up Fund.
I'm very passionate about doing that. We really want to do that. We're doing everything possible to be part of that. And I would just say, watch this space.
What are the roadblocks to that happening?
Well, I am not going to put any other roadblocks in the way of achieving my goals. So I will just say that it's something we're very, very keen to do. We think that would be the best for Britain. And we're working hard at it, and the discussions are ongoing.
And EQT are very keen to make that happen as well.
I think, I'm very positive about this, and hopefully, I'm very positive.
Okay. Last month, you unveiled a £1.1 billion plan to boost the country's ability to develop, deploy and scale underlying technology powering the AI build-out. That includes £150 million to buy novel chips from startups and so on. People, again, were saying they love this initiative, but are worried about the scale of it, given that hyperscalers are spending this amount of money in very short order.
Everybody should just push us to do more. And I welcome that strength of commitment. But it's really important. It's, when we're investing in that very, very early stage of invention, the ARIA's Scaling Inference Lab, we've increased the funding to 70 million, so brilliant, innovative companies can actually show it works in practice. We've got £400 million for the sort of novel inference chips, including an advanced market commitment, but also this big thing, which is £750 million in a heterogeneous supercomputer with lots of different types of chips. So people can really show that it's working in practice. We've got a very, very long and proud history in AI hardware. I quoted this in my speech in London Tech Week, but it was actually Kanishka who reminded me of this. He's an MP in Wales. Was that Jim Callaghan invested just £50 million, a big bet, a big risk in a semiconductor company in Inmos, which was based in Bristol, manufactured in South Wales. And that actually led to many of our strengths today. And one of the teams from Inmos went off to help start up Arm, which is now the most valued company in UK company by market cap. So I think you can take bets. You can take bets on your strengths. And that was at a time when industry had crumbled. So Labour governments have done it before, and they're going to do it again.
Alex Depledge, who is advising the Chancellor on entrepreneurship, said that she worried that Britain was just becoming the R&D incubator for America because we sell so many of our great tech companies to Americans. And so Arm, for example, that you mentioned, was bought by SoftBank, is now listed in New York. So do you think we ought to have a more protective M&A policy?
No, I think we should have a more ambitious policy to help our startups to scale up. That's why it's really important that Sov AI, works seamlessly with the British Business Bank and its £2 billion a year potential to invest in companies to help them through to the next stage, and then link that with the sort of, as I've called it, the holy grail of government procurement. Look, I'm sure there's been a lot of debate in the FT about the Defence Investment Plan. But actually, part of that, 10% of the Ministry of Defence procurement budget now will need to go on innovative British companies, and that will include on tech and AI. So we have got to link all of those things up together so that we help companies not just start up, but to scale up and stay here. In the end, it'll be for founders always, in the end, to make decisions about what's best for their company. But we want to make and keep this country to be the place that they want to stay.
Final quick-fire questions.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
What achievement are you most proud of from your 9 months at DCIT?
Sov AI and the hardware plan, because I think that lays the groundwork for Britain having greater leverage and control over the most powerful technology of our lifetimes.
Who outside government at the moment would you most like to draw into the UK kind of tech ecosystem and advise on politics?
Well, I've never worried about asking anyone for advice, whether they're here or not. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm very lucky in this job to be able to do that. One of the things I found very interesting, particularly even for the British founders who have moved to Silicon Valley, is just how unbelievably patriotic they are, how they really want Britain to do well, how they are very ambitious for this technology, but they also believe it needs to be deployed responsibly. And I think it's because they're ambitious, they want it to be responsible. So, and I think many will consider coming back or staying here. Look at David Silver. He's decided this is the place he wants to set up his new company. So I think there's all to play for still.
Final question. I read that you captained your college football team at university. So is football coming home?
I hope so. I did. My ladies' football team. In that regard, it was, I have to say, more about sheer competitiveness and determination than my goal scoring. I was midfield, rallying the troops, and that's what my job is.
Did you stay up half the night watching the football?
Do you know what? No, I get up at 5:30 to go to the gym before I get my boy up. And so I got up and there was a brilliant 12-minute clip on the BBC about the highlights. So I watched it this morning.
Liz, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining the show. If you fancy learning more about the Sovereign AI Unit, do check out our episode with the chair, James Wise, from May. And we'll drop a link to the Sifted Daily in the episode description where you can stay up to date with the latest twists and turns in UK tech policy. We have a profile later this week of rumoured Burnham AI advisor Josh Simon, so do keep an eye out for that. And as always, please rate, review and share the podcast. This episode was produced by Maya Dalrymple Hornby.